Clay, I've just got to say, as a New Yorker, as we're waiting to get the police update here on this shooting in the New York City subway, it's heartbreaking when you see how many people have been injured, shot, going to school, going to work, trying to live their lives. And in the background of all this, too, is a city that has gotten a lot less safe in general, like so many others across the country, Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Crime feels like it just keeps escalating, violent crime. And for a place like New York, the subway is the artery, if you will. It is the series of arteries that connect us all to each other. To go after this just feels like a kick in the stomach of a city that is already reeling.
Well, this is just emblematic of the larger issues with crime that are occurring everywhere. I ran through the list, but I think it's worth hitting because in addition to the 8.5% inflation, which is just every single day, so many people out there feel it. New York City obviously gets a lot of attention because there's a large collection of media. And the subway itself has had so many viral, unfortunate incidents, it feels like, of late. But when you look at some of these numbers, and I mentioned them, they constantly are updating here. But, Buck, just listen to some of these cities and the rate of murder, right? Because crime in general is sometimes difficult to track down. But when you actually look at year-to-year murder increases that are going on, they're through the roof. What's going on all over this country is absolutely terrifying, and it's going to be a big part of this midterm. Atlanta up 43%, Birmingham up 40%. Just some of the Cincinnati.
Clay, can I just break in for a second here? Because they're starting this press conference right now in New York City live. Let's go to it. We'll come back with those numbers, that data.
Grillo, Governor Kathy Hochul, Police Commissioner Keyshawn Sewell will outline the events as we know them. Laura Kavanaugh, the first Deputy Commissioner and Acting Fire Commissioner, will walk you through casualties. Jen Lieber from the MTA will give us the status of the system, and then we'll be able to entertain some limited questions. There will be another briefing later this afternoon where we'll be able to update that, and then additional briefings as needed. First Deputy Mayor Lorraine Grillo.
Thank you, John. So from the very minute this incident occurred, the mayor and I have been on the phone monitoring the situation constantly. We have worked with all of our agencies, the FDNY, NYPD, OEM, all of the agencies who have worked really hard together, and we continue to throw all of the city's resources at this situation. We've made all of the resources available, and we'll work with the Office of Emergency Management for any additional needs. I'm going to ask the Police Commissioner, Keyshawn Sewell, to speak to you and give you an update on the events of today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We're here to update New Yorkers about an active shooting incident that took place this morning inside the 36th Street subway station on the N line. I want to begin by assuring the public that there are currently no known explosive devices on our subway trains, and this is not being investigated as an act of terrorism at this time. We can also report that although this was a violent incident, reportedly we have no one with life-threatening injuries as a result of this case. This investigation is only hours old, so please note this information is subject to change. Just before 8:24 this morning, as a Manhattan-bound N train waited to enter the 36th Street station, an individual on that train donned what appeared to be a gas mask. He then took a canister out of his bag and opened it. The train at that time began to fill with smoke. He then opened fire, striking multiple people on the subway and in the platform. Again, we will describe him as an individual. He is being reported as a male black, approximately 5 feet 5 inches tall with a heavy build. He was wearing a green construction type vest and a hooded sweatshirt. The color is gray. At this time, we are working with our federal partners where we are asking for the public's help. Anyone with information, videos, or photographs, no matter how insignificant they think that may be, is encouraged to call Crime Stoppers at 800-577-TIPS. All calls are strictly confidential. I'd like to turn it over to the FDNY to give information about the victims. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. The governor would like to speak now. Governor Hochul, my apologies.
That's right. Good afternoon. This morning, ordinary New Yorkers woke up in anticipation of a relatively normal day. They left their homes en route to school, en route to their jobs, and to a normal day, as I mentioned. That sense of tranquility and normalness was disrupted, brutally disrupted, by an individual so cold-hearted and depraved of heart that they had no caring about the individuals that they assaulted as they simply went about their daily lives. This individual is still on the loose. This person is dangerous. They're asking individuals to be very vigilant and alert. You'll get more reports on specificity as the day goes on. So this is an active shooter situation right now in the city of New York. I just got off the phone with the mayor. He's recovering well, he is monitoring, he's actively engaged in the situation. I wanted to let him know that the people of the entire state of New York stand with the people of this city, this community, and we say no more. No more mass shootings. No more disrupting.
All right, so we're hearing there from Hochul, who is giving a speech. We're not getting any updates on the information here from her, the governor of New York there. Clay, people can get into the technicalities of this, whether or not it's we don't know why this person did it. We don't have the person in custody. That's the single most important thing. They're saying it's not being investigated as an act of terror yet. That can change. I think it is likely to change. It could be, the range of possibilities that come to mind. Obviously, act of terror. We don't know what the ideology is behind it. A just deranged individual, more of a mass shooter incident, something along the lines of what we've seen in other times, the Colorado movie theater shooter, for example, someone who's just completely insane. Or it could be a hate crime situation. We just don't know. We don't know who the individuals are who were targeted. But those seem like possibilities. It was clearly planned in advance. And it's stunning and a piece of good news in an otherwise very troubling morning here. No one has life-threatening injuries from did I catch that right at the press conference? Which is
pretty
shocking.
Wild to think about when you're talking about the shooting taking place in such a closed situation. But to me, all of this coming together just continues, and I know any individual act of violence is hard to be attributed to any particular incident. But this is, to me, Buck, just symptomatic of larger issues of violent crime that are surging across the country at the same time that inflation is hitting 8.5%, a 40-plus year high, that the border is poised to be open, and that on the East Coast they are trying to bring back masks. It's just everything that can go wrong since Joe Biden has become president feels like it's going wrong when you look at every situation, not only in the United States, but around the world. And I don't know how we get back to a sense of normalcy, but the first 100 days for Mayor Eric Adams in New York City, I know many people were optimistic that it was going to represent a substantial change from the de Blasio administration. You can speak to this far better than I can, but things do not seem to be getting better in New York City right
I was
now.
deeply pessimistic, and everyone that I know in New York who wasn't is saying that I was right so far, unfortunately, about the new mayor, the new administration. I think that there's been really a shift in the Democrat Party, and until the mainstream narrative of the Democrat Party switches from we need to invest resources in the community to stop crime to we're going to back up our cops, lock up criminals, and take the threat to public safety as an immediate crisis that we're going to stop instead of a 10 to 20-year horizon of maybe if we do more youth programs and outreach efforts. That's all fine. I'm not opposed to any of that, but you got to lock up the bad guys now. It is men who are committing these violent crimes, obviously. Over 95% of violent crimes are committed by men. It is young men in particular. There has to be a change in the ideology or a change in the approach and the focus. I mean, Clay, we could sit here. There will be a lot of speculation about this individual before we get more information about it. What are the chances that this person had either a long criminal record of some kind or a clear psychiatric record of people knowing that he needed the attention of the state, shall we say? Very high.
Yes.
Don't know for sure, but the probability is high.
That's the problem, right? You are having so many of these people who are engaging in violent acts all over the country are people who should still be behind bars. And the real amazing thing about the Joe Biden administration and really the 47-plus years that Joe Biden spent in office is probably the best thing he ever did was the 1994 crime bill. And he ran trying to pretend that he hadn't done it. That's honestly what we need, Buck. We need people back in jail. We need police back on the streets. We need district attorneys who are actually going to prosecute crimes. And until that happens, this lawlessness is going to continue to skyrocket. And by the way, it's not just shootings. The lawlessness is taking place. The amount of shoplifting that is going on is unprecedented all over the country. I was reading the data on shoplifting is through the roof everywhere. They're shutting down stores in San Francisco, for instance, because there's so much shoplifting, they can't make money in those stores. I mean, that's unheard of.
The left believes this is just redistribution of wealth, by the way. That's what they think shoplifting is. That's really, if you go to the hard left, they believe that this is, making up for inequity in society.
Well, certainly it has not helped that we've set so high limits now on shoplifting. We need to start punishing everyone who is committing crimes of a high level.